Archer,
Here.
Caroline Battle,
Okay.
Here.
Tina Bosman,
Here.
Jerry Bowles, Jerry Bowles, I can see you on the participant list, Jerry, but I'm not hearing you. We'll come back to you. John Bowman,
Present.
John Gall,
Here.
Mary Grott,
Here.
Elliot Henry, Quintinus Henry, somebody speaking. Jeff Mazer, Lee Metcalf,
Here.
Lydia Mitchell,
Here.
Wynn Mizell, Mary Moriarty,
Here.
Vanessa Parker Lewis,
Present.
Reginald Scott,
Here.
Carolyn Seward,
Here.
Jerry Bowles.
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Okay, so before I call the meeting to order, I want to note for everyone that this meeting will be recorded. So if the recording is ready to go or on.
Good morning. This is Quintinus. I did join the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. I have you down.
I believe we're recording now, so I'll call the meeting of the St. Louis County WIB Board to order for September 28th, 2022. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's been a while. The first order of business is the approval of the previous minutes. So the minutes from May 25th, 2022, I think they were in your board packet. So if we can have a motion to approve the minutes from those meetings, I would entertain a motion and a second.
So moved, John Bowman.
Second, Carolyn
Second.
Seward.
Motion and a second. I believe Mary did the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There's none. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Hayes for opening remarks to the board. So Director Hayes, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, members. Literally, as of yesterday, I've been with you 1 year. And as always, I want to thank you for your support and the good work you perform for St. Louis County. As I met with Dr. Page and talked about the past year and the years ahead of us, top of mind, again, was the Job Center and this board. And so from all of us, I want to thank you. Also, I'd like to mention it has been a while. I welcome the fall. We've had monkeypox scares, heat waves, floods, so many things that impact the clients that we serve. But through it all, this administrative team, led by Greg Laposa, kept our doors open, kept serving the public, and I just want you to know that you have a fine team. So again, thank you and good morning to all.
Thank you, Director Hayes. I have brief remarks. I'm just going to say a couple things because I know we have a big meeting. We have a lot of votes this morning. We've moved them up. You know, we hadn't met in a while. So since that time, I just kind of wanted you to know that the county staff had July and August. They had a construction forum for job seekers. I think it went really well. We do want to welcome a new one-stop operator, Kelly Lingle, who will be responsible for managing job center functions during this year. And also Greg's going to talk about it in a little bit, but the St. Louis County Workforce Office participated in a regional Department of Labor grant. So we'll let Greg talk about that a little more. I don't want to steal his thunder on that, but we won. So there you go. Gave it away. And thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate you getting up and getting on. And some of us had to fight through the WebEx and get on the technology. So I appreciate all of your time and attention to our WIB. So now I want to hand it over to Director Laposa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Director Hayes, and good to see everyone this morning. We're going to prioritize the votes while we have a quorum and have everyone attending. We know sometimes folks have to get on with their day close to the 9 o'clock mark. So we'd love you to stay for the full meeting until 9:30, but we want to make sure that we put the business before the board first. So we'll just go through a series of votes that you'll see on your agenda under item 6, items requiring a vote. And then we will take those votes and then we'll go back to me giving a few updates and move through other reports that we have to share with you today. So without further ado, let me start off with the WIOA PY 2022 budget and program allocations. This is the first vote that the board will take. Part of the reason why we had this meeting moved to September, at the end of the September, was because we had, as you all know, we had this year a delay in receiving our allocations. We've also had some transitions in our fiscal staff, so working with them to get everyone up to speed and on the same page. We wanted to make sure that we didn't have to have multiple meetings with you all to confirm both the budget as well as the program allocations. The board in the last meeting authorized us in the special board meeting to enter into the renewal contracts with our subrecipients, our current subrecipients, for the third and final year of those contracts for this process. And so this budget that we'll share in a moment, and Loris, feel free when you're ready to display that budget, is both, again, the budget for the PY 2022 funds that we have, as well as you'll see noted subrecipient allocations. And so we will, as we always do, you all will authorize us to basically operate with that budget. And then over the course of the program year, we periodically need to make adjustments here and there as needed. So you're authorizing us to do that, as well as with any budget that doesn't require a board vote. So we wouldn't make any fund transfers or anything that would require us to present to the board. But ultimately, we're starting with this budget here. And then as we see what the needs of the participants are, we might make adjustments to certain pools of funds related to that. So Loris, are you able to share the screen to get the budget up?
I am not yet. Sean, can you give me permission to share, please?
Sorry, what was that? My headphones were messing up. Did you need something from me?
Yes, can you give me permission to share, please?
Yes, ma'am. 1 second.
Can you maybe zoom in just a little bit, Loris, and then just kind of scroll through quickly for us, just to thank you. So I'll just say, I think generally, and I can let our fiscal team and Loris weigh in on this, but I think our subrecipient award amounts are consistent with the prior years or previous last couple of years amounts. We haven't seen any cuts that I can see in these amounts, and they're pretty standard. There may be some increases actually in certain areas related to the subrecipient contracts. We also have fairly sizable budget for ITAs. These are, again, the individual training or the tuition accounts, training accounts for the participants when they enroll in skills-based training programs. That tends to be where a lot of our funds for direct participants goes. But we've also built a pretty hefty budget for work experience. As you all know, we've launched a couple initiatives related to work experience as you've looked at the business services report. And so we're looking to enroll more participants there. And then we've had a successful incumbent worker training program with Washington University that enrolls several cohorts throughout the year. And we've also been expanding some new partnerships to implement incumbent worker training. We just had our recent graduation of our Straight Up Solar incumbent worker training, where folks earned a credential as solar installation panelists, for instance. And so that's why we're building out a pretty sizable budget for incumbent worker training as well. If you look down to the bottom part of the budget, much of past apprenticeship, much of that other budget is really more administrative funds for county board staff, as well as operating the center, other infrastructure costs and admin costs associated with fiscal staff as well. So before we approve the budget, are there any questions? I should know, by the way, that this was more or less not an add-on to the agenda today, but you didn't see this prior to the meeting. We were still tweaking some of the numbers yesterday. So like I said, feel free to look at it and then let us know if there's any outstanding questions before we take the board vote on it.
If we have no other questions or anybody wants to ask Greg anything, I would entertain a motion to approve the WIOA PY22 budget and program allocations.
This is Lee Metcalf. I just wanted to ask, just Greg, at a high level, your comfort level with being able to execute this. Any other questions or concerns anybody on your staff has about it? It looks pretty straightforward, but any other thoughts you want to add?
No, I don't have any concerns about it. I think the team worked diligently to arrive at numbers that make sense and trust that our subrecipients will spend the money that is allocated to them. The big question, I think, for this board that we'll discuss when we get to financial expenditures is that we need to spend money faster and at a higher rate overall. And that's not specific to anything, a particular category here. What we need to do, though, I think, is continue to innovate and develop new programs, especially work-based learning programs, whether it's OJTs, apprenticeships, incumbent worker training, that and enroll as quickly as possible and with as many people as possible into some of those direct participant services, because we do have carryover money, as you see lined out in the second column here, Loris, if you go to the top. Substantial carryover money from PY21. Now, that money doesn't have to be fully spent until the end of the program year, but it is a historic trend with our board that we have this carryover money. So we've got to put a strategy into place. We have some new fiscal staff. We're going to work more diligently on that this program year to really get some pieces in place that help us to spend at a faster rate. But we have historically also always spent all of our money, I think, is as it's obligated. In most cases, we've not had to return money. If we have, it's been a very small portion and not substantial. And so I think that we're still going to follow that trend, but at the same time, we could be spending money faster, and it would be a good position to have to ask the state for additional money because we've been spending the money at a faster rate, and we know that there's plenty of people in our community who could benefit from it. So that's more of a big picture concern that I think the board does need to continue to stay vigilant about, but not specific, again, to any of these particular items in the budget.
Great. Well, then, to the chairman's request, I make a motion to approve this budget.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Mary. We have a motion and a second. Loris, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Brad Ackman, Jason Archer,
Yes.
Caroline Battles,
Yes.
Cynthia Bosman,
Yes.
Jerry Bowles,
Yes.
John Bowman, John Bowman, John Gall,
My
Mary.
apologies. John Bowman, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bowman. Dr. Gall, Mary Grott,
Yes.
Elliot Henry, Quentin is Henry,
Yes.
Lee Metcalf,
Yes.
Lydia Mitchell,
Yes.
Gwen Mizell, Mary Moriarty,
Yes.
Vanessa Parker Lewis,
Yes.
Reginald Scott, Carolyn Seward.
Same.
Thank you. Yes, Carrie, sir.
Okay, so the next vote is on the DSS TANF Jobs League PY21 funds. These are not abnormal. That both of these DSS programs are the programs that we operate in addition to our standard WIOA programs. And so you've seen, if you look at the agenda, the allocation amounts for both of those programs. We'll take the vote on the DSS TANF Jobs League first. And really all the board is doing with this vote is just authorizing us to receive the money and use that money for programming. So again, this is part of our standard operation of programs that we offer as a St. Louis County Workforce Development Board.
I'll make that motion, John Bowman.
Second, Senior.
Okay, Loris.
I'm gonna go quickly. Jason Archer,
Yes.
Caroline Battles,
Yes.
Cynthia Bosman,
Yes.
Jerry Bowles,
Yes.
John Bowman,
Yes.
John Gall, Mary Grott,
Yes.
Quentin is Henry,
Yes.
Lee Metcalf,
Yes.
Lydia Mitchell,
Yes.
Mary Moriarty,
Abstain.
Vanessa Parker Lewis,
Yes.
Reginald Scott, Carolyn Seward.
Same.
Motion carries.
All right, and this, as I just mentioned, the next vote is the DSS TANF FNS Skill Up PY21 funds. Again, this is the standard program that we operate and ask our adult dislocated worker provider to operate. So you're just like you did a moment ago, you're just authorizing us to receive the money that the state has given us to operate that program. Is
So
there,
moved.
is there a second?
Second, Senior Bosman.
Jason Archer,
Yes.
Caroline Battles,
Yes.
Cynthia Bosman,
Yes.
Jerry Bowles,
Yes.
John Bowman,
Yes.
Mary Grott,
Yes.
Quentin is Henry,
Yes.
Lee Metcalf,
Yes.
Lydia Mitchell,
Yes.
Mary Moriarty,
Abstain.
Vanessa Parker Lewis,
Yes.
Reginald Scott,
Yes.
Carolyn Seward.
Abstain.
All right, thank you, Loris and all. Now, the next vote is for receiving the EO funding. So this supports our equal opportunity function, supports the work that Angela and Michelle Patterson do to make sure that we're in compliance with all equal opportunity regulations, and we receive an allocation every year from the state of Missouri for that as well. And it's 25,000. You should have again seen that in your agenda, and this is a pretty standard process for us. We always receive this or vote to receive this money. So we are just asking again that you authorize us to officially receive and use that money to support the equal opportunity function, which is a requirement of WIOA and our board.
Make a motion to approve. This is Lee Metcalf.
Is there a second?
Second, Reginald Scott.
Jason Archer,
Yes.
Caroline Battles,
Yes.
Cenia Bosman,
Yes.
Jerry Bowles,
Yes.
John Bowman, Mr. Bowman. You're still muted, Mr. Bowman. Okay, we'll come back to him. Mary Grott,
Yes.
Quentin is Henry,
Yes.
Lee Metcalf,
Yes.
Lydia Mitchell,
Yes.
Mary Moriarty,
Abstain.
Vanessa Parker Lewis,
Yes.
Reginald Scott, Carolyn Seward.
Abstain.
John Bowman, yes.
Okay, thank you. Ayes carried.
All right, thank you. And the final vote that we're taking, by the way, we're doing this very efficiently. Thank you all. The final vote is to initiate the RFP process. So we do this every few years when we get to the final year of our contract, and we're looking at PY 23 essentially now. So looking at the next start of the next program year, we're required to undergo an RFP process. The contract terms that we have with our current subrecipients were 2 years with a possibility of a 1-year renewal. So we're exercising that renewal option for this final program year here that runs out June 30th of 2022. June 30th of 2023. And so we need new contracts in place for the PY 23 program year. So this vote today is to authorize St. Louis County's workforce development staff to reach out to St. Louis County's procurement office and request the authority to start the RFP process. For the county, that tends to take at least 6 months in most cases. So the goal is to have RFPs out for the provision of services for workforce development by the spring of 2023, similar to how we did in 2020. The RFPs were released in March, I think, officially of that year. So the board today is again just voting to authorize us. You're not voting to procure any new services specifically at this point in time. You're simply giving the Department of Human Services and Workforce Development the authority to reach out to the procurement office and begin that RFP process, which again is a requirement anyway. But any questions on that?
I do, and I'm the chair, so I'd like to ask this because I want to make sure I'm right on this. We only do this because we only do it like every We do it every
Few
3
years, yeah.
2 years plus a year extension. So the board we as a board will see the RFPs again prior, like this vote is not like you're doing the work, but we have an opportunity to review them again and discuss the RFP posts, correct?
Yeah, the goal would be at a subsequent meeting, either November or February, to review and maybe even between then to review what the RFPs look like, the services that we're providing, or that we're looking to procure and to have provided to us. And then once we actually get bids, so this is allowing us to undergo the process where we post those RFPs publicly, secure bids from the community. And then the board will have an evaluation committee, as we had last time, actually review the proposal and make recommendations to the board about who the award recipient should be. And at that time, the board will actually see and know who the bidders are, what the contracts are, and what the recommendations of that evaluation committee. So part of this is St. Louis County's process layered on top of our board requirements, right? And so there's an evaluation committee as a requirement of the RFP process. And again, we have the evaluation committee present the recommendations to the board for board to ask questions, to offer input and suggestions around those recommendations. But yes, to be direct, yes, this board will have multiple opportunities and we'll revisit this each time we have a board meeting up until the time that we post, and then finally ask the board to ultimately approve the contracts with the providers that become the workforce development subrecipients.
Thank you. Does anyone else have questions they'd like to ask Greg? Seeing none, or would someone like to make a motion to allow St. Louis County Workforce to initiate the RFP process?
Jason, this is Senia. I motion.
This is Lee Metcalf. I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Loris, would you please take the roll?
Trying to get Dr. Gall. He's having some technical problems with the spectrum being out in his area. So I was trying to get him the call-in number. I apologize. Jason Archer,
Yes.
Caroline Battles,
Yes.
Senia Bosman,
Yes.
Jerry Bowles,
Yes.
John Bowman,
Yes.
Mary Grott,
Yes.
Quentin is Henry,
Yes.
Lee Metcalf,
Yes.
Lydia Mitchell,
Yes.
Mary Moriarty,
Yes.
Vanessa Parker Lewis,
Yes.
Reginald Scott,
Yes.
Carolyn Seward.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Those are the major business votes that we needed to take today. There is one more vote that we'll take a little bit later in the agenda, but appreciate all of your attention to those important, mostly fiscal matters for this agenda. So thank you. I will give you a quick overview of some updates since our last meeting as part of my director's report. Sean, if you could enable me to also share my screen, I'd appreciate it, but I can also do this without sharing at the moment. So just if you could authorize me to share, and then I can start my report. So first I want to introduce Kelly Lingle to the team. She's our new one-stop operator. She's following the footsteps of Deborah Stovall, who you all came to know over the years. And Kelly's officially started as of August. We're happy to have her. FWCA has hired Kelly because FWCA has that contract. So they've hired Kelly, and Kelly is now in that role of more or less making sure that everything in our job center runs smoothly, that we have cohesion among all these partners within our job center, making sure that our referral processes work right, making sure that the customers get everything they need. And she also plays a role in helping us to track and report to the board on on enrollments and other data pieces that are important for us to do the work. So and she brings a lot of experience and energy to the role, and we're happy to have her. Kelly, I don't know, I think I saw an email saying that you wouldn't be able to speak. So I was going to say, if you wanted to say a few words, let us know, but I'll give you a few seconds to let us know if you can actually speak. If not, we'll make sure that you're good for the next meeting to be able to. I think she can hear us, but she just can't speak for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on with her computer, but she's, like I said, she's bringing a lot of positive energy to the team. She's already hit the ground running, got a lot of projects underway to strengthen collaboration again among our partners in the Job Center. So again, we're happy to have Kelly join us.
Hi, Greg. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I finally figured that out. So, hi, everybody. This is Kelly Lingle. Yes, I'm very excited to join the team. And I do have about 20 years of experience in workforce development. So, I'm very excited to be back here in St. Louis County this time. So, I worked at Slate for about 10 years as a deputy director there. And before that, job developer and community relations manager. So I bring a lot of experience to the table, and I am enthusiastic and look forward to working with each of the team members here in the county. Thanks, Greg.
No, thank you, Kelly. And again, you'll be hearing more from Kelly as we move forward throughout the program year. The next update I have for you is that we are also in the midst of a significant change in our Job Center with our technology. That is something that we've talked about before periodically on these calls. But we've been operating with technology that has been outdated for a number of years now. Most of the technology that is in the Job Center, we brought over from North Oaks when we originally transitioned over to the Crossing. So if that gives you any sense, and I'm waiting for Vanessa Parker Lewis to take a very deep sigh here when I say that, because I know she is all about having the most up-to-date technology resources. But she'll be happy, and hopefully the board will be happy to know that we are going to be deploying in the next within the next 4 to 6 weeks new technology throughout the Job Center. And this will be technology that will be both utilized by customers that come in, so our public-facing, public-serving technology, as well as technology for our staff. And over the course of the last couple of years, we've had to deal with a number of issues we've had to troubleshoot related to some of those technology problems. So we're at the point of a new day in terms of having updated resources for our staff. And as I was talking to the staff at one of our last all staff meetings, one thing I said was, we know how important it is for you all to have the resources you need to do your job effectively. And if we don't have that, then it's going to hurt our ability to serve customers. So we're happy to have these new resources. These are going to be Chrome boxes, Chromebooks deployed throughout the center. Everyone's going to be then also integrated with St. Louis County's IT system, which previously we had to operate on multiple domains because of the old domain that was set up from the previous computers. So this will help us strengthen cohesion and also addressing technology problems in more real time than we've been able to in the past as issues arise. So this is a big deal because we're looking at over 100 different computers being implemented and installed in this Job Center. But it'll be a newer experience for both the public as well as the staff, who will be, I think, will find themselves more equipped with the resources they need to do their jobs well. So I'll give you, if you can all see this, a little peek at what these computers look like over here. So much bigger monitor, if you can see this. And these little Chrome boxes here are the extent of what's on the actual desk itself. So it's, again, not obtrusive in folks' workstations. And I think everybody will appreciate the bigger monitors. And again, it'll have the latest software and licenses and everything. So we're happy about that and want to give appreciation to Director Howard Hayes, and I believe our Deputy Director Mark Peoples is on the call, but they've been instrumental in helping us to carry that forward from our previous director, AJ, who had started reaching out to find out how we could procure new technology. But it was Howard and Mark who really carried it across the finish line and got us to where we need to be. So we appreciate your advocacy and your support.
Greg, my heart is smiling. Oh my goodness, you can't see me, but I'm grinning.
Right. Well, we'll have to, and Mr. Archer's been asking me to make sure that we have a tour opportunity for board members of our job center. So I think we'll wait until we get this technology installed, Jason, so that folks can see the new experience altogether. But we expect you to sign up first for that tour, Vanessa. You can feel free to come out anytime you want, actually, because I know you'll be happy to see it.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Well, any questions about that? It's all good news. Any questions about how we're going to deploy that?
No, but since you kind of let the cat out of the bag, I kind of wanted the board to know that members of the board, Greg and I have been discussing and talking with Director Hayes about trying to do like a board tour where we go into one of the job centers and we kind of like work with staff and we go through and we see how an individual gets services, gets touched by what we do and how it impacts the community. And so we're just trying to get that scheduling date set up so that, it's voluntary, it's not a mandatory meeting or anything like that, but it would allow a refresher and to see how we impact an individual when they walk in the front door at one of our stops. And so Greg had said that it was nice to see that peek behind the curtain there, Greg, with the new technology. So I guess we should wait until we get the technology deployed and then we can go around with the board and set a date up and do that.
Jason and Greg, just a recommendation, but as we're looking to onboard new members, we may want to explore that being part of the onboarding process because, how can you really effectively recommend and help engage others if you truly haven't experienced what some of our job seekers are experiencing? Just a recommendation.
Yeah, that's a great idea. In the past, we've done an orientation, but as we've done it, it's mostly been, at least since I've been here, it's been virtual. It's been a PowerPoint. We've run through it. We're not necessarily over the pandemic, but we're at a point now where I think getting that activity back together in person again makes a lot of sense. So I think a tour is a good opportunity for the board to do that, but especially for new members to really see and understand when we talk at this level about our programming and our funding, how it looks in terms of practice is a good recommendation, Vanessa. So thank you for that.
Pleasure.
All right, the next item that I want to share with you all is that we are also preparing for a industry sector series, is what I'm calling it, but several hiring events that profile job opportunities in key industries that give our region a competitive edge. As Director Hayes noted earlier, our county executive, Dr. Page, has been very passionate and focused on how are we using our job center not just to serve customers who come in and with a variety of opportunities, but how are we also working with employers to align to where there's positions that have a lot of openings, right? How are we addressing this constant thing that we hear about in the news, that we see in the St. Louis workforce report around talent gaps, around labor shortages? We're still feeling that pain as a region and as a country, and it continues. As one of our friends over at Greater St. Louis Inc. recently told me, it's always about workforce. Their conversations when they're looking at employers who come to the region, right? That's the first most pressing concern that they have. When they come to St. Louis, will they have the workforce that they need to be successful? And also knowing that there's a lot of turnover. We've talked about some of that data too, that we've seen the last couple of years. A lot more folks who are either taking better job opportunities or perhaps getting burned out from their jobs. There's a lot of discussion around mental health and the workplace these days and the effects of the pandemic on mental health. But that's a factor that's driving a lot of workers to leave their current roles and to pursue other opportunities. And so, again, we want to have a organized industry-driven approach to hiring, and that's called out in our local plan as a board. So that's part of our strategy, but operationalizing that is another thing. And so what we're trying to do over the next months and then into the first part of 2023 is to have several industries spotlighted and host major events that draw a significant amount of job seekers. So the first event we're planning for October, late October. We'll send you the date and the flyer. It's a pretty nice looking flyer that we've just recently started distributing. And that'll be focused on healthcare. And so when I say healthcare, we're not just talking about the nursing shortage and hospitals. We're talking about kind of this network of health providers in our area. We have needs in our public health department in St. Louis County and St. Louis City. We also have needs in our mental health, kind of behavioral health ecosystem for workers. Dr. Gall on this board has been a very strong advocate around community health workers and the talent shortage there of community health workers who can actually be in the community, helping to connect folks to resources. And if you look at the data, you see that substance use disorders are on the rise, suicides are on the rise. So we have to, not just when we think about healthcare, we have to think about, involving, again, our partners in the mental health, behavioral health space. So we'll have employers in all of those spaces to be available to meet with job seekers. We will be posting, sharing with our job seekers in our database the opportunities that'll be available for them. We'll be looking at our MoJobs database and doing some recruitment to raise awareness about that event. And then we'll also have Dr. Page help us to amplify this event as well as subsequent events, right? Using the county's platform to get the word out to the community and to raise awareness. So we're hoping to have a pretty big media push around this too. We're working with our public information manager and our Department of Human Services around that communication strategy. But again, our kickoff event is around healthcare, but we're also planning events for the very first part of December around transportation and logistics. And then as we get into 2023, we'll be hosting events around information technology and advanced manufacturing as well, because those are also big needs. So if you're a private sector member of this board and your company fits in those areas, you can bet that we'll be reaching out to you to ask for your company's participation in that event. It's free to all of our employers. And I think one of the best benefits that we offer is that we provide no cost services to assist employers in actually recruiting the talent that they need. So we'll have that day is from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. It'll be out at the crossings, but it will actually be located in a neighboring tower that we have. So it won't be in the job center because, again, we're trying to really blow up the attendance of this event. And we're going to be using a space that has a even larger conference room, and that also has a space where folks can more easily walk around and not disturb customers who might be doing job searching and other things in our job center at the time. And so we'll be doing it at the 500 Northwest Plaza location. We'll have signage and everything outside of the event. But we've already started to share that internally and ask our co-located partners as well as our sub-recipients to help us get the word out about that event. But of course, we would love to have you helping us to amplify this too, and we'll be sharing the flyer. If you could share with your networks, that would be a great way that our board can assist us in getting the word out about this opportunity, and we'd be grateful for that. So again, this is the first event is healthcare, but it's a series. So we're looking at how are we addressing these talent shortages as a board in our region, and that's really, when we think about our purpose, we are supposed to be the workforce development planning agency for St. Louis County, right? We're supposed to be playing this role of being a convener, an intermediary, connecting employers to job seekers. And so again, it's a key part of advancing our local plan strategy too. Any questions, concerns, or thoughts on those events that we're planning?
Hey, Greg, this is Vanessa. I have all of the above questions and thoughts. So the question is, are we looking at the strategy from a generational focus? And the reason I ask that is because, social media drives everything. You see on one end of the spectrum, social media shows that St. Louis is, a prime town for college graduates. So I think the more we can push kind of that messaging, that would really help. And so my question with that is, are we targeting our flyers and our communication and even the whole job seeker experience to target certain generations? Because I'm Gen X. I'm high Gen X. I'm on the cusp of a baby boomer, but I'm not. So we need to make sure that we're not using the strategies that I would be familiar with, right, to attract millennials and Gen Z, because it's really not going to work. And I think sometimes that's what's being done.
Yeah, it's a great question. We are working with our public information officer around our communication strategy. And so when we meet later on today, what I will do is ask that question, Vanessa, how are we taking that generational approach? How are we thinking about the multiple ways that we're communicating? One thing that we haven't shared yet, and that's unfortunate, is that we've actually lost ourselves a talented member of our team, Ethan Dixon, who was our social media digital marketing coordinator. So he's actually taken a job with one of our higher education institutions. We miss him, and I think he misses us based on the text messages that I get. But he's taken his talents elsewhere, and so that's not to say that we won't have, though, a strong social media approach either. I just wanted to say that, typically we would say Ethan's gonna manage that, but that's a good question. Why I'm saying that is because you're asking a good question that he probably would have thought of, that I want to make sure that I put in front of our public information managers. We're thinking about our strategy. We do have, and I'm not saying that it's only about social media for the younger generation, because there's all kinds of ways that they consume information. But I would say that, we'll have a combination of kind of traditional media messaging that might go out through local news stations, whether it's radio or TV, which is probably not the way that the younger generation consumes information. And so we'll do it on that one hand that way, but then on the other hand, we will have social media promotion as well, and using our Facebook page, our Twitter page, as well as I don't know if we have an Instagram page, but I'd have to double check that with Peter to see. But we work with our communications team in the county executive's office, and they have a number of new staff members who are coming from the millennial or even the next generation, I believe, based on some of our conversations. So we can ask that question of them too, and help to make sure that that's kind of a front and center approach to how we message this event.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is kind of down that same vein with the generational differences, is to make sure that we're educating employers too about, the number of eligible employees in the St. Louis County market. And, I think having a generational focus would be really helpful, because then they'll have real expectations on filling roles. I was at the SHRM conference last Friday that was held in St. Charles at the Ameristar, and we spoke about the generational differences and the St. Louis area as well as the country. And I got to tell you, it's pretty eye-opening, especially when you're an employer and you're trying to fill roles, and depending on how you are, um, communicating those roles, it may not be attracting who you want to attract. It may not be attracting anyone at all. So I think educating employers on what the St. Louis County generational makeup would probably be helpful too. Some type of data.
Yeah, absolutely. I've made a note of that, and we can follow up on that, Vanessa. But that's a good recommendation as well. And totally agree. Any other thoughts or comments on that?
I'm making the assumption that the school districts have been included for like high school seniors, or like, is it kind of a career pathway as well as a job thing, or I'm just kind of.
That's a good, so we do have the special school district as one partner that's already signed up, but I don't think we thought initially to share that with our K through 12 partners. But you make a great point, Jason, that there's probably some career awareness exposure opportunities there that we could also look at graduating seniors. Again, if some of them may have started a program, for instance, with a special school district that, like for CNAs, for instance, certified nursing assistants, that would be useful to make as a connecting point as well. Really it's about, getting folks who are kind of ready to start employment, those opportunities. And I think that graduating seniors who maybe not be pursuing post-secondary path immediately, but who may have the ability and the skills to fill certain roles, we should be making them aware of it too. So we have a education liaison in the county as well that we can ask her her thoughts on that too. But no, good point, Jason. It is about career pathways, especially for the youth. Okay, well, if there's no other comments or questions about that, look for us to, again, promote this event. Please share using your social media opportunities too, or share the flyer by email with other partners, particularly agencies, organizations that have a significant number of people that they're trying to connect to employment opportunities. That will help us to have a exponential impact in terms of our recruitment. This is building off too, I should say, some events we hosted this summer in July and August in partnership with the Construction Forum, where we had a construction-focused hiring event and had a number of contractors there, employers there, and had over 100 people altogether show up. We want to see that number even increased as we look to these next events that we're planning. But we did get some media attention there. We did see a number of job offers that resulted from that, but we're still following up to see how many of those job offers led to employment. Sometimes that takes a while, as many of you know, as your employers yourselves, that the employment process, you may first meet an applicant, ask them to go on, fill out an application, then it takes a couple months to see if they're hired and then employed. But we feel like that was kind of a catalyst for this thinking too. We had that construction focused event. And we said, let's look at other industries that have hard to fill workforce pain points that we have to address. So just wanted to note that as well. And the final update, and then I will stop talking on my report and move to our financial report, is on this DOL registered apprenticeship grant. That's also noted as an item under our new business, but I think we can just cover it in this portion here. But we did receive, as part of a consortium, a $5.8 million Department of Labor grant to support apprenticeship expansion in the St. Louis region. And so this was actually, you received the press release from Loris that was originally sent out, I believe, from Madison County, because Madison County is technically the lead applicant. Madison County in the Illinois side is the lead applicant. And we'll be essentially a subrecipient of this grant, but we're going to be unique in that in the county, we'll have a full-time employee who is staffing that apprenticeship navigator role. So that person will be located at the job center, will be the one to meet with employers as well as job seekers to do matchmaking for apprenticeship opportunities. They will also be charged with making sure that we achieve one of the goals that's outlined in the proposal around developing new apprenticeships. So it's not just about getting folks enrolled in apprenticeships. It's also about launching at least 40 as a region, new apprenticeship opportunities, registering new apprenticeships with the Department of Labor. And so we will be looking at some innovative ways that we can develop new apprenticeship programs that are high value for employers and that present opportunities to the people we serve. And there's an opportunity here for some experimenting with perhaps some new ways to do apprenticeship. I was recently informed of a food truck apprenticeship on the Illinois side, for instance. I'm going to go out and check that out pretty soon. But it's a food truck apprenticeship program that's operating in Madison County and in Edwardsville, where they actually work with emerging entrepreneurs who want to create their own food truck business and training them in the skills to do that, both as a business owner and also, food truck industry kind of practices. And then at the end of their experience, they earn a certificate of credential that is recognized by the Department of Labor. And then they also is part of another partnership with an organization. They even received some seed capital to launch their own food truck. So that's an example of something you wouldn't think of traditionally in the apprenticeship space. And I know some of our friends in the construction industry and skilled trades are very familiar with the apprenticeship model. But in this case, we're looking at kind of capitalizing on the traditional framework that we use for apprenticeships and what industries we target. But we're also looking at new opportunities for building apprenticeships and expanding them. Jason, do you have a question? I saw you raise
Yeah.
your hand.
How did you know, or how did it come about that you said it's a Madison, Illinois workforce? How did you know to sign on to the grant? How's this work? Do you meet?
Yeah, so there is a regional consortium of workforce development directors for our bi-state area. So on a quarterly basis, Madison County, St. Clair County, St. Louis County, St. Louis City's Workforce Board, as well as Jefferson Franklin counties and St. Charles County all meet to discuss regional issues. And for a while, we've actually said in our regional plan, because we also have to submit a regional plan that builds on top of our local plan to the state of Missouri every year. We have to submit a regional plan. One of the goals that was outlined in there was to pursue a joint grant opportunity at some point. And so, the Department of Labor often releases new grant opportunities, and we were extended an invitation from the Madison County folks. They have a lot of robust activity on around apprenticeship on the Illinois side, and we're really emerging too with our apprenticeship focus in Missouri as well, in partnership with OWD. But they mentioned to us that they were going to go after a proposal and thought it would be good for our consortium to look at jointly pursuing this. And so we joined as a partner. Our region has to get 750 new apprentices into programs. And so each area will have some goals assigned to them related to that bigger picture number that we're trying to achieve. But we will, in our side, we're going to play a leadership role. St. Louis County's Workforce Development Board is in Missouri to coordinate activity, not only with our job center, but also with St. Charles County, as well as City of St. Louis and Jefferson Franklin counties too, because we'll have the staff person on the Missouri side that will assist with that. And the more I talk about it, there's a lot of responsibilities the staff person will have. So we'll probably look at maybe even building some more staff positions around this effort. But this is several years. I think the funds have to be expended by 2026. So we have some time we're in the kind of the planning phase, the design phase of this right now. There's a lot of things that we're going to learn in our conversations with Department of Labor. As I know some of our board members, Carolyn, have experience with working directly with Department of Labor. There's a lot of requirements, nuances to things that they want that's separate from what our regulations are related to WIOA that we have to adhere to. And so I'm doing a lot of learning there. Our staff is going to be doing a lot of learning in the months ahead. But again, know that the county is playing that leadership role in coordinating apprenticeship activity on the Missouri side. And this is the first time that this regional group is actually committed to working together to implement a program like this, which, as many of us know in St. Louis, is oftentimes difficult to get past some of the fragmented and fractured nature of our region. So this is not only a win for us, but it's also a big win for the region, because I think what we'll do is also build a collective muscle around apprenticeship through this opportunity. We have a couple apprenticeships right now that we offer training opportunities for that we consistently enroll people into. And so this is an opportunity to build even stronger foundation around apprenticeship. And again, that's not just in the county, that'll be across our bi-state area. And hopefully as a result, more opportunities like this continue to get sent our way or funded, because we're showing how we can collaborate. And our friends in the economic development space were very happy to hear this as well, because they're trying to do more coordination and trying to make sure that our workforce boards aren't having one-off conversations with employers, that we're really looking at a more regional strategy. So this is a nod towards regionalism. It's a nod towards St. Louis County's leadership role in this as the largest region that's part of that consortium in terms of the population we serve. So we'll be expected to undoubtedly carry a little bit of a heavier lift than some of our other partners in that consortium related to those numbers. But we're going to have staff dedicated to it. We'll probably build some additional staff around this initiative too, so that we're well equipped to do this well. So more to come on that as we roll through this design and planning phase. Any other questions from board members on that?
Just one, if I could. Um, Actually, a quick series. So number one, the focus of that money, I assume, focuses on two things. One is salary, paying them for the time that they're in the apprenticeship. And the second is, any costs associated with actually delivering the training, trainers, et cetera. Is that a fair statement on fundamentally where is this money going to get used?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we will receive money for the staff position. The county will actually receive those funds to support the staffing of that particular position. But that's a small portion of the 5.8 million. The majority of that funding, because there's only, for Madison County will also have a navigator like us, and they'll have a grant manager who's kind of in charge of the reporting and all the administration of the grant. But there's no other real full-time staff assigned to this initiative outside of what those positions are initially. The majority of the money will be used for the training, for helping to seed these new apprenticeship opportunities if it requires some additional funding in partnership with training providers to create a curriculum and an apprenticeship program. And then there's going to be money used for marketing, and I shouldn't say marketing, outreach and recruitment for participants. And so there's a budget for that as well. But a significant portion of that $5.8 million is training dollars. That's really actually augmenting our existing funds that we already have available to support training, but it'll be specifically for these apprenticeships and not be able to be used for other direct participant costs.
I look forward to getting closer to that. The dynamic that I hear, and I know that we have to have coordinated and program management infrastructure there. Got it. Okay. But when we talk about where this money goes, and that's the only part of the topic, is how to put structure in place, that is a yellow flag for me. I'm running into that everywhere. Everywhere I get money, all of a sudden the fiduciary entity is sucking off the top of that bucket all kinds of program management. And what I warn us is define where the money literally hits an individual, and those individuals need stipends. They need, in order to take the time to take the training, they need monetary support during that time, along with building the curriculum. And by the way, a lot of this curriculum already exists. And so if we create a whole curriculum development side of the world and ignore our community college and others that have already created a lot of this curriculum that we can leverage, I mean, it's just being smart about that, but understanding, are we going to put dollars in the hands of people, these 750 that have to be found? And I didn't hear any of that in any of our discussion, just hiring people to manage the program. That's just a little watch out, a little angst I have about these kinds of efforts. Item one.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The majority of it will not be spent on program staff, but how about what I could do is send out the work plan that outlines some of how that's all broken out and some of the funding resources that'll be a part of this. Supportive services, to your point, Lee, as well, is a component. I forgot to mention that, but you mentioned, how there might be other barriers to participants enrolling in the programs, life issues, dealing with some of those challenges that affect
You and I
them.
are working through that right now. What I have to go through to sign up young people into WIOA, and what qualifies and what doesn't, which comes back a little bit to the nuances you say you're trying to better understand. But those are the things that are standing in the way of getting more people into these apprenticeships, because they don't fit whatever the unique niche is that this person has to live up to be eligible. And so understanding those requirements however fast we can, because I'm knee deep in apprenticeships right now, which brings me to my second observation. You've got several areas of focus, healthcare being a critical, important one. What I didn't see, please correct me if I've just overlooked it, is a focus on information technology, IT as an area. Is that not a focus for us?
No, it is. Yeah. I did say that I said it kind of fast, but I did say it'll be healthcare, it'll be transportation, logistics, information technology, and advanced manufacturing. But information technology spans across all those industries too. We know it's a critical, integrated function of all those industries. But I did say that, so that'll be probably 2023. So I think we'll need, you to provide us some thoughts on how we pulled that event off well, Lee, that would be appreciated because we're
I'm gonna
going to give you
share
some
those
time to help
things.
us with the planning of it.
I mean, I literally, I'm in the middle of the recruiting process here. So I've got 80 kids already signed up out of high school going into apprenticeships in 12 different corporations. So part of that is how do we help the corporations? How do we help those kids specifically? How do we maybe even help the high schools? To John's point earlier. So love to get into that. The third item is the collaboration piece, critical piece. It's been we've underestimated our inability to do a lot of that. It's been a nemesis for here in this region. So I'm delighted to hear the alliance that you alluded to across workforce development directors, et cetera. To that point, I'm putting together something with Filament to try to pull people together because we're tripping over each other in the region again. In working with the high schools, they've got geospatial coming after them. They got cyber out of Sam's group, out of Cortex coming at them. And so I would offer that I didn't include initially thinking about a rep out of your staff, but you probably ought to be there. And so part of my goal there is to figure out how we might work together better, because the CTE coordinators in every high school in this region, every school district, are struggling with trying to isolate the wheat from the chaff. They're getting inundated with requests to how do I get my kids or orient your kids into these different programs. And so your rep to the high schools, I would offer maybe is another critical point of discussion on how we bring young people into these apprenticeship opportunities who are in our North County and city high schools in a more effective way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, happy to be a part of that if you want to invite me to it. And I do think as we look at this grant, apprenticeship and connecting people to those employment opportunities long term is critical. So we'll learn from you on that and some of the experiences you've had with the initiative that you're leading to. So thanks for your support and engagement as always. And yes, we'll be planning that big hiring event for IT as well. So we'll reach out to you and certainly want you to be a participant, or your company to participate in that. So one question that I have, so that's any other questions on the DOL grant? Well, more to come.
I have a question about the definition of advanced manufacturing, because all of the different areas that I've heard mentioned, IT, healthcare, working in wholesale distribution and understanding the labor shortages in the whole MEP area, so the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and the trades area, and the shortage that I know exists with these general contractors and subcontractors. Are any of those areas targeted in the advanced manufacturing part of this grant, or is that not part of what we would look at as a whole?
Yeah, so for the grant itself, I should say a lot of the apprenticeships are targeted towards several industries that are not advanced manufacturing. Healthcare, bioscience, education, and information technology is kind of an underlying theme throughout it as well. And so that's not to say that we're still going to do an event around advanced manufacturing though. And there's a lot of, as you've been looking at local news, a lot of push around that. There's that new advanced manufacturing initiative that will be kind of emerging from that $25 million Build Back Better grant. And there's also that Boeing has that new, I think, advanced manufacturing center. So there's a lot of discussion around advanced manufacturing. We don't really, I don't think there's anything exclusive in terms of how you're framing what would be considered jobs in advanced manufacturing, Mr. Henry. So as we look to the future and we look at, and just outside of this grant, we're still interested in apprenticeship opportunities, and we're still interested in creating pathways to careers in advanced manufacturing, because our region's economic development plan, and especially the 2030 jobs plan, tells us that's a key industry for quality jobs. Remember, and our purpose is not just to get people into any job, it's to get people into jobs that lead to wealth building and family sustaining wages if they have children. So the goal should be to find what those occupations are in advanced manufacturing that lead to those opportunities, and make sure that we offer enough training programs that connect to those pathways. And I can tell you right now that we probably don't have enough training providers in the county that specialize in that kind of training. And we could do a better job with that. So I appreciate you bringing up the conversation, because when I look at our training providers, we're pretty heavy in healthcare. We do have a number of information technology providers, but we don't have much in the way of advanced manufacturing as a training pathway.
All right, thank you.
But again, we can do that. We can build that. So that is something to work towards. Okay, well, if there's no other updates on or questions on that, like I said, a lot more to come on that. We'll keep you in the loop, and I'll follow. I'm writing a note to follow up with when we do our takeaways today. We'll follow up with the more information on that proposal and what's in it. So thanks for your questions and engagement on all of these topics. I know it was a lot, and I appreciate the opportunity to engage. A lot of times we're just reporting to you all, but I appreciate the healthy dialogue. And we're at 8:50, so we want to make sure that we go through our financial report. But before we do that, Loris Williams sent me a message about Dr. Gall, who's joined us, but his votes weren't recorded in any of the votes that we took. So Loris, we're not going to roll through, I don't think, all those votes again for everybody, but do we want to just confirm that Dr. Gall votes in the affirmative for all of the votes that this board had voted on? He was present for those votes. He just, because of muting or technology issues, couldn't unmute. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I did send Mac a message, a chat, to see if we can count Dr. Gall's vote. So Mac, if you can read the chat and let me know whether we can go forward with that. And Dr. Gall, can you still unmute?
So Loris, this is Mac. So yeah, you could record his votes. I don't think that it would change the difference because it's based on majority voting, which his vote, even if you were to vote no on all of them, wouldn't do it. But for the record, you could absolutely record them if you wanted to.
All right. So Dr. Gall, would you like to have your votes recorded?
Yes, please. That's why I sent them via the chat, just so they would be recorded. Thank you.
Okay. And would you like to vote affirmative on all those, or negative, or abstain from any of those?
I was voting yes on all of them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll record that. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Thanks, Mac. Thanks, Dr. Gall. All right, so we're going to go through our financial report. I think I'm going to be sharing the slides. Alice, you're with us, right? Alice Brown? I see her listed, but she's not unmuted yet. Alice Brown is new to our staff. As I mentioned, we've had some transitions. We've had the departures of Marvin McJoy back in the spring. Then we had a fiscal director, Victoria Reed, who you all met for a brief period of time. Then we had Ann Agnew, I think, present at the last meeting. Ann Agnew has since retired. A lot of folks retire and are transitioning. But Alice is now our fearless leader in our fiscal department, who's been with us now, I think, all of maybe 3 months, maybe 3 months at most, probably. Is that right, Alice? Can you hear us and speak?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is Alice Brown. I've been with St. Louis County for 12 years. I was in the auditor's office for 3 of those years. But yes, I have been with DHS for 2 months, going on 3 months now.
Okay, well, she's hit the ground running and she's getting caught up to speed on a lot of things. We also have Chris Horn. I don't think he's on this call, but he is also a supportive staff member for our fiscal unit. So Alice, I'm just going to flash up the report. I think if you could just give us maybe a high level overview. We don't need to go through each individual fund, I don't think, but we can talk about some trends. I can add some thoughts to that too, but if you wouldn't mind just kind of giving us your initial overview or thoughts, if that works for you.
So Chris worked on this mainly, and he was having complications on getting on. I believe he phoned in. Not sure he reached out to me, but he was pretty much the overseer of this because I was working on, as you know, the audits and other things being pulled away. So I don't really want to say
Yeah, no, okay, understand. I think you were finishing a sentence, but we didn't hear it
yeah,
all.
I mean, I guess I cut off or froze
Yeah,
up a little bit. So sorry about that.
no worries. So I'm familiar with the reports as well. So let me talk through a couple things real quick as we look at these. First of all, can somebody let me know if they can see the screen that I'm showing, which is the workforce development board meeting WIO program expenditures?
So these are yes. So these are the funds that we had allocated for these different programs. These are the fund numbers on the side. As you can see, the start date and the end was our beginning balance. This is what we have expended so far within these three top programs that are the current year in the previous, I believe the 2021 going into the 2022 that was extended also, right? Am I right, Greg?
Yeah, so
Into
the PY 21 funds, they go through June of 2023, so they have to be expended by that time. And then the PY 2022 we just received and won't need to be expended fully until 2024.
2024,
Right.
correct. So this is where we stand now as of last week. I believe this was our final report run.
Yep. So this is the most up to date. We do a lot of spending in the adult program. A dislocated worker historically has been a challenge for us, and we've seen some interesting trends with the pandemic. And then now, sometimes by month, it varies how many dislocated workers we serve. Sometimes they're half of the enrollments that we have. Other times they're a smaller portion. So we still see in the local economy that we're not, while the unemployment rate is low, we still have a healthy portion of people who continue to come into the job center who would qualify potentially as dislocated workers. So that's a strategy that we've talked about before that we need some real focus on. But we also in the past have exercised the option to transfer funds. We're not going to request the board to approve that in this case. If we continue to see the data showing us that adults are the primary population that we enroll and that there's where the greatest need is, the board can always approve a fund transfer to move money from the dislocated worker program into adult to allow some more opportunities for ITAs or other supportive services or other resources for the adult program. In our youth, this is again PY 21 money. So we've just started using all of these funds. This is the problem or the challenge that I mentioned at the front end of this meeting when Mr. Metcalf asked the question, do you see any concerns? We a lot of times will begin to start expending money from the previous year's allocation, towards the end part of the previous 2-year fund amounts expiration. What we need to do is get a better balance, I think, of spending this money at a quicker rate because, now we have this year to fully expend this program year, but which ends in June, to fully expend all these different programs. So, this is a program challenge that we got to really think through, but we're also going to be working with our friends in fiscal to develop some strategies so that we can spend money at a faster rate and then monitor that spending and work with all of our partners who are helping us to get referrals into these programs so that we can spend the money faster to help us meet all of our obligation rates that we have for the state. But this is, you see that PY 2022, we just received these funds in this last couple months. So we have not, that's why those are all 0% because the state has the first in, first out rule. So we got to spend the previous money that we have, and then we start spending the next year's money. So those are just some general comments. Any questions or concerns aside from the general concern around the need to spend money faster.
Greg, this is Senia. I just wondered, are there any carryover options available with our funding that ends 6/30/23? Any carryover if we need it? Will we be able to carry over some of these funds?
I don't think any, because all these are formula funds and not special grants. I don't think that is an option, unless Loris or somebody else has another thought on that. But I don't think these funds specifically are. But we did see the COVID-19 grant, for instance, which was extended by the Department of Labor for another year. So we'll talk about that one in a second, because that's an other expenditure report. But for these funds, these WIOA formula funds, these are kind of our guaranteed pot that we have for the year as a basic pool that we have to use. And so I don't think there's an extension possibility for any of these. But correct me if I'm
That's
wrong.
my understanding. That's my understanding too.
Yes, there's no, hey, everyone, it's Dr. Manny. Good morning, everyone. So no, these funds, not only will they not be extended past 2023, it's when we move into that murky water where OWD will possibly, toward the end, where we're reaching that end date, they can reallocate those funds to other regions that have met their spending obligations and need more funds before those funds expire. Because those funds not only expire with the regions, those funds also expire with DOL per the state for what they've allotted for the state. So as a state, we have so long to expend DOL funds, if that makes any sense, everyone. So again, not only will we not be able to carry those over because we already have allotted funds for 23 moving forward, toward the end of that end date, they have that option to reallocate those funds to other regions.
If
Great,
if
this
I
is
may
Carolyn.
say also that based on the budget that you all just approved, as you may recall, a lot of those carryover funds were used. So those funds will be used first before we get into the PY 22 funds. So we should not have any problem expending the PY 21 funds, because we did allocate a substantial portion of those to increase the program budgets, ITA training dollars, and so on, as you saw in the budget that was previously presented and approved.
Thank you.
Greg, this is Carolyn, and I just agree with I do agree with what Loris just said. I know on the youth programs, with the number of youth that we have pending to enroll, particularly what has gone on the last couple of years, we are now getting back into the schools. We still have some hybrid learning, but in school, out of school is going very well. And just as one of the recipients that have a majority of the budget, I can tell you of the dollars that were contracted with FWCA, we're at 90 or above 100%, particularly on the youth, and had to request additional dollars. So we will work very closely with Greg and the staff to make sure that programs are created that will assist us in spending those dollars.
Yeah, and to your point, Carolyn, most of the money that we award to the subrecipients, except for in the youth programs, we also award work experience dollars are spent on staff. And so I think, the real challenge is to increase the enrollments across all programs, particularly dislocated worker, to get, work experience dollars spent or ITA spent. And, we know that there's a staff component to that. I know, Lee, you were raising a concern about administrative costs, but there is a staff component to managing some of the case management and work that's required there. But at the end of the day, we have to get as much money as we can into the supporting activities for people, whether it's supportive services or tuition, training dollars, or work experience. So, even if FWCA or Employment Connection or International Institute spend their money, it's not always going to, at the bottom line for the board, when we look at these numbers, this captures the whole pot, right? So then we got to look at, how much more can we be doing around enrollments and other other ways to spend these resources at a faster clip. And as we verify, all these pending enrollments that Ms. Seward mentioned, some of that will be in work experience and other programs for those who are eligible. That pot that's been recommended of individuals who are eligible for those services, a lot of that will be probably work experience or potentially training opportunities that we would spend money on those who we deem eligible and are able to enroll. So, but we do need to develop, I think, a stronger strategy around this collectively. This is, to your point, Ms. Seward, we will follow up and kind of and this will be the case with all of the subrecipients as well as our fiscal team to kind of map out, okay, what does the game plan look like here? How do we, and probably even bring our one-stop operator into that discussion as well to how to really, because we can also leverage these partners we have, right? OWD has staff here. We also have Better Family Life that has clients going through the MWA program that's located in our job center. We have partnerships with Youth Build and Job Corps. How do we better leverage all these resources to get referrals so that folks who are eligible for these services get the money, spent and on them and their needs, whether it's supportive service or training or other programs that we can pay for. Okay, so to that end, we will now move. We'll move forward on this, and then I'll share the other expenditure report. Cindy, you were asking about extension opportunities. There was one that we've, I think, already notified the board in the past about at past meetings, so we'll share that real quick. Let me pull that up. All right, can somebody give me a thumbs? Carolyn, can you give me a thumbs up? I can see you on my screen. Okay, you can see it. All right, so this is our other grant expenditures. So you see the DSS programs, you all voted on receiving money for the new funds for these programs. We have the COVID-19 grant, which is the grant I was just referring to. We've spent much more of that money since the last time we had a discussion. Now, we also had some money reallocated for that grant as the Department of Labor was looking at giving us that extension, the state of Missouri, I should say, and then the state of Missouri worked with local areas, and St. Louis County still had money that, to Dr. Manning's point, we hadn't spent yet. And another region wanted to continue the program, but they had no more money left. And they were a much smaller region that had a much smaller allocation originally. So they gave that, they asked us, the county, if we'd be willing to reallocate some of our money for that other region so that they could continue to participate. And then if we end up spending all of our money, or we get close to spending all of our money that we have as a reallocation, then we're able to request additional dollars from the state to support that grant up until the expiration, which is June 2023. So that grant was previously set to expire in 2022. Cindy, to your point, it was extended by the Department of Labor. And this is a special grant, not a formula grant. So that's why that was the case. And so we're continuing that grant. We've developed a modified budget. We share the strategy for how we're going to expend money faster with the board at the special board meeting, I think, is a follow-up. And so you all offered some feedback then on that. And I think it's going well so far in terms of enrolling some new temporary employees recently. We still want to spend most of the dollars now in our modified budget on training. And so we can start now that the state has finally returned the official approval to us in the last few weeks. We received the actual modified budget. We can start spending those training dollars as well out of that grant. So we have a lot of our folks enroll in training programs, and we'll be able to use most of this remaining 40% of the funds that we have available for supportive services training and also some admin costs associated with that grant. Otherwise, some of these other programs in equal opportunity wasn't fully expended by the end of 2022, and our DSS programs weren't as well. So I think we'll have to take a closer look at the reasons for that. Sometimes it may be around reporting, but otherwise, I think we're in good shape with the humanitarian grant and with the new DSS programs, we'll look at how to get 100% expended there. But I think we'll do a closer look on the reasons for only the 83% and the 77% expended for those programs by end of 2022. I don't immediately have a specific reason for that, but these were the latest numbers that are in our financial system.
Greg, I think it was due to reporting, what the state had requested for reporting for those funds.
Okay. So yeah, we'll look closer into that. And Alice, do you have any thoughts on this that we need the board to know before we move on from this report?
No, sir. You showed the corrections that I made the other day on there, so that's good. No, sir. Everything is up to date as of yesterday.
Okay, one other thing, the Show Me Heroes, I'm noticing too, that was a program that the state told us that they've struggled with across the board, and that's a state program. They're repurposing it as a new grant, and they didn't change much about it, except for they're going to be having some of their OWD staff recruit veterans and refer them to the job center for us. There's certain requirements around the Show Me Heroes grant that's supposed to be supporting veterans that are around eligibility. That's been difficult for us to identify candidates and enroll, or at least across the state. That's what they've been saying. So they're going to devote more resources to enrollment, specifically around veterans. And I think they did change some of the eligibility criteria for that grant as well. So we'll be receiving another opportunity to participate in that program. But that was something that we didn't use, when we had the option to expend those funds on the population that grant would serve. Okay, well, if there's no more questions, there's only one other, I guess, couple points under financial matters that we have to share. One is that we received $18,000 to spend from the state towards the very last week of June. Now, this was something that the state gave us money, and they said, go ahead and buy whatever, well, not buy whatever you want, but they said, go ahead and buy within the requirements, things that would help participants. So some regions spent it on technology upgrades, for instance, or other resources. But as you all know, we have to, whenever we receive money, we get your vote, but we also have to go through the county council to receive our money. And that's typically a 6-week process. So in this case, with the supplemental funding amount, we received it the last week of June, and we were told that we had to spend it within 48 hours, essentially. So we didn't have the ability to get that in front of the council to approve. But I did want to note to the board that we have made we made a recommendation and then have a new policy in place related to being able to receive supplemental funds. So I'm going to let Loris talk about it, because it was Loris who worked with the county counselor's office on that, and we introduced a new piece of legislation for the first time this year. The board should be aware of it, because we're going to continue to do it moving forward. Loris, you want to talk about that?
Sure, really quickly. Thank you, Greg. So we were able to put through a request for legislation that would that asked the county council to allow us to not only receive our formula funds, but also to receive any supplemental funds up to $250,000 without having to go back before the council to get that approval. So in the case of the money that Greg just spoke of, if we were to get another opportunity like that from OWD to say, here's some money, spend it right quick, we can go ahead and do that without having to go back before the county council. So that's a great feather in our cap, and we're really proud of that accomplishment. So.
Yes, absolutely. And this state is also very happy, because we've historically been a challenging region sometimes when it comes to the processes in place that are required. Not all boards have to go through their legislative body or have to follow those same protocols. And so we are, required to do that. But we found a way to improve our process, so we better can support customers moving forward. And that was, again, due to good collaboration. So Thank you, Loris, for that update. And again, we'll move every year we receive funds, we'll make sure that we include that provision as well. And then the COVID-19 7.4 COVID-19 humanitarian grant funding deobligation, that's just to notify the board that what I already said, which was that some of the money that we had in our overall budget for COVID-19 grant was originally higher than what we see now. And that was because that smaller region needed more money to participate in the grant. And so we agreed to give up some of the money to support that region participating with the understanding that OWD would award us additional money if other regions don't use their money if we need it. So our goal is to fully expend, 100% expend that funds. We're at 60% now, so we think we'll get there by June of 2023. But in the event that we spend it even faster and we need more money, we'll be able to make that request. But just wanted to notify the board that there were funds deobligated for that grant that reduced the overall amount, but not by an overwhelmingly significant amount. I think it was by, Loris, do you know, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but do you know how much it was by? I think it was about $30,000.
Which grant are you talking about? Oh, 29,000.
The COVID-19 grant.
Yes, 29,000.
Okay. Okay, well, we have several reports, but I think we need to get to an old business item first before we end this meeting, because we need to take the opportunity to bring on a new member potentially to our executive committee before we get to the next executive committee meeting. And the board has to, according to our bylaws, vote on that particular office as well. And so we circulated, and so I'm moving, Mr. Chair, if I could, if the board would give me permission to move to old business and then go back to workforce development reports with any remaining time that we have. But let me first go to visit this item under old business, which is the officer nomination.
Yes, can we just move to it, or do we?
Yes, yeah, I just wanted to let you know what I was, I just wanted to let you all know what I'm doing.
Because it requires a vote. So like Greg said, we put a call out for individuals to ask to join the executive committee on a position. We had a response, and according to the bylaws, I can make the motion. I'd need a second, but I'd like to make a motion that Mr. John Bowman become the parliamentarian for the St. Louis County WIB Board.
And I'll just say before anyone seconds that motion that, again, when we did our all call, John was willing to serve, and we appreciate his willingness to step in. We haven't had a parliamentarian in quite a while, actually, for our executive committee, and that is an office that's mentioned in our bylaws. So that role will help us to stay on track with parliamentary procedure. If there's ever questions during the course of a meeting around parliamentary procedure, we'll rely on the parliamentarian to help keep us, in line with those guidelines. But also, the other key is that John will serve on the executive committee, which often meets the first Friday before the board meeting to help plan the agenda for the board meeting and to be an initial sounding board for some of the board business that we'll discuss. So that's a leadership role. It's an officer that would serve a term of 2 years on our board, and then be up for potential reelection as well. So, and we currently we have several members, Jason, Vanessa, and Cinia as part of our executive committee. So John would join them. Just wanted to make sure that was stated as well. John, do you want to say anything before we take or we get a second motion?
I think you covered it all. I am very honored and humbled to have the opportunity to serve in this capacity. If it's the board's will. Thank you.
John Gall, I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second for John Bowman to be the parliamentarian. And I guess I've done enough elections in my life to know I should ask, is there anyone else that would want to be considered for that position? Hearing no other nominations, I'll close that. And since there's only one nomination and with a motion and a second for that position, I believe a voice vote would be in order by acclamation. All those in favor of John becoming the parliamentarian for the WIB board, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Bowman, for becoming our parliamentarian.
Thank you. I will keep Robert's Rules of Order book near me.
Good, we appreciate that.
Keep us accountable.
Can I ask again, who were the first and second? I'm sorry. That happened so fast.
The motion was.
Dr. Gall. Dr. Gall seconded it.
Okay, thank you.
And I will just urge the board, one thing we wanted to have in place at this point was to have our executive committee fully staffed. So we still need a vice chair, and the vice chair has to be a business representative. That's a requirement of our bylaws, and I think WIOA requirements. So we still need a vice chair. Our Director Hayes, you heard at the beginning of the meeting say, if Jason was absent, we would have to, we could proceed with a vice chair, but unfortunately we didn't have one. So we need to get that position filled fairly urgently. So we'll likely be reaching out to you. We allowed folks to offer some nominations, but we'll likely be trying to persuade some of you to consider it as a follow-up to this meeting before we get to the next meeting where we'll vote on that vice chair. And then also we still need a treasurer as well, I believe. And that treasurer is going to be the person who's going to be responsible for working with us in our fiscal team in preparation for these meetings related to our expenditure reports and our general finances. And as you can tell, we've got some discussion and work to do around our expenditures. And so that person would help us to play a critical role there too. But that would round out the rest of our executive committee. And then if anybody else is interested in serving in that way, we can look at options for that. But we will be reaching out, like I said, to fill those two particular positions. Unless anybody would like to say now in front of everyone else that they're interested in being considered for either vice chair or treasurer.
At the sake of giving myself more problems than I need, I would open the door to, if we could, Greg, just talk a little bit more about the vice chair position. I'm willing to support that.
Okay, great. Thank you. We will talk. Yeah, I'll follow up with you on that, Lee.
Thank you.
Anybody else for either of those two roles? Okay, well, like I said, look for us to reach out to you. And thank you, Mr. Metcalf, for your willingness to consider it. And we'll talk through it and see if it still resonates in something that you want to commit to. But thank you for expressing that interest. All right, so there's a number of workforce development reports. Some of them are actually pretty substantive, and we'll cover, I think one thing that we're going to start doing more of is spotlighting specific elements at these board meetings. I think, we do a lot of reports, but you all don't always get a chance to really get in the weeds or deeply into some of the work that we do around our performance, around compliance related matters. I know Dr. Manning always gives a report. Loris always gives a report on administrative functions and what's going on with contract processing. You've seen those reports in your agenda. So at the risk of, I guess, I don't want to miss any major update that we have at this meeting, but we will have a more deep dive into particularly compliance and performance at the next board meeting. So we've already started talking about that. There's some things that we still need to do around financial monitoring requirements related to risk assessments. We have program risk assessments that we've begun that we'll share and that we'll discuss, as well as part of new sub-state monitoring policy. But there's a number of new policies that we have to discuss at that next meeting. But Dr. Manning or Loris, I know we don't have Derek, and I think Angela is on our call, but she says her mic isn't working. So I think if there's any update, Angela will ask you to provide it to the board because we don't see any report in the agenda. But Loris or Dr. Manning, is there anything that you want to make sure that we give an overview of right now before we conclude this meeting in the next 7 minutes?
Hi, hey, Loris, I'm gonna jump in real quick. Good morning, everyone. There's a link in your agenda packet for the negotiated St. Louis County performance rates. You receive this each year. I just want to give you guys a quick overview of what you're seeing when you have time to view it. These negotiated rates are rates that our region, that each region in Missouri speaks with OWD about, and we come to a agreement, a consensus on what they expect our performance level to be for that year. We did the negotiations this year with the state. And so when you look at the particular link that is within your agenda, you'll be looking at the line that's in, you'll look at all of them, but the final negotiated rate will be that item that's in green, that last column. And these are the rates that we have to reach in order to be considered in good standing with the state of Missouri. So I just wanted to give you guys an overview about what those negotiated rates are. These are the rates that we negotiate with the state each year, and we say that our region will surely either meet or exceed. And what we want to do each year, guys, is exceed these negotiations. So we look at this as where we need to at least be, but we always strive to be better than that. So, however, these are negotiated rates for PY22. If you guys have any questions after viewing these rates about anything you view, please feel free to reach out to me.
And that will be something too that we go into deeper dive on at the next meeting as well. Those negotiated rates, but yes, you have them available for you to begin looking at and asking questions or preparing questions for that next meeting, which by the way, we're all going to get together again pretty soon in November. It's going to be here before we know it. We got about maybe 6 weeks, because remember the board meeting in November is earlier than most because of the Thanksgiving holiday. So we'll be meeting, I think, the second week of November for that. You'll get the invite out shortly for that, but that's already coming up. So we'll be meeting again as a group soon, but we'll go into a deeper dive on that.
Absolutely. And as Director Laposa also alluded to earlier, in that meeting in November, I want you guys to know there will be a lot of information disseminated as far as our risk assessments. We are now held accountable per OWD and DOL regulations to do risk assessments each year on our vendors. We have completed the program side of those risk assessments. Again, we are working on the financial side of those risk assessments, but those will also be very detailed and laid out for you in that November meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Manning. Loris, do you have anything?
Everything that I have is included in my report, Greg. Thank you.
Okay. And then I did have a text from Angela, whose mic isn't working. And Angela tells us that she wanted to say that the money that was not spent for EO was allocated for training and printing. So she's referring to that expenditure report that showed that there was still some money left out there, but she says it was spent for training and printing. And she also says that there is an EO summit in November 16th through the 18th. She'll make sure to share the link and other information by the end of the week on that. And those are the updates. The business services report, Derek is not with us today, but much of what we talked about with some of the work-based learning programs and incumbent worker training is in that report that you see in your agenda. So I don't think there's anything else there. We also do have the one-stop operator report that you can also view that has some information around enrollments across each of the programs and it's the standard report that you all have seen before. We'll make sure that Kelly, as we move into the next meeting and meetings afterwards, has some time to answer any questions that you all might have on that, but you have the report available for you as well. And then we also have our customer feedback, which is always, we just print off the latest returns that we have about our job center. So you can see any comments in that as well. So sorry, we did not get a chance to go into those workforce development reports at length. Again, though, appreciate the robust discussion on the previous topics that I shared. And I think there's a lot of good opportunities in the fall and as we look into 2023 for this board ahead. So with that, I will just turn it back over to the chair to say any final words and close us out.
Well, final words put on the next. Is there any open discussion items that anyone would like to bring in front of the board prior to adjournment? Is there something we missed? I agree with the director. It's great conversation throughout the meeting.
I have a quick question, Jason.
Yes.
Mary Grutt. The links on the agenda, will those remain live for some time, or so we can continue to look at those, or should we be downloading those to save them?
That's a really good question, Mary. Loris, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, they should stay live, Mary.
Great, thanks, Loris.
You're welcome.
And I should say too, this is now in place of our board packet. This is now, I think, the second meeting we've done this, but we send out that 40-page or 50-page board packet. So now it just can all be accessed when we publish the agenda by those links, and you all can print off your board packet from, if you just download each of those items and print it off. But you can also decide maybe some of those items you don't need to print. So, that will help, I think, with hopefully make things easier for all of you as well.
Anything else? Any other business to come before the board? Seeing none. Thank you everyone for your participation and attention this morning. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. This is Senior Bosman.
Second.
In a second. We
Yeah.
are adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thanks all.
Sean?